Hello, all. Today's topic is a very famous speech by Sojourner Truth called Ain't I a Woman? So, this speech is very popular among the feminist literary circle and elsewhere also. So, let's move on to a little background about Sojourner Truth's life. Sojourner Truth was an African American abolitionist, women's rights activist, and author. She was born as Isabella Baumfree in the year 1797 to slave parents called James and Elizabeth Baumfree in Ulster County, New York. So there was this slave auction that was happening during the time of Sojourner's birth and earlier to that also. So when Sojourner was 9 years old, she was sold at this kind of slave auction to a person called John Neely along with a flock of sheep for $100. So this John Neely was a very cruel man and he was a violent slave master, and he always bet Sojourner regularly, and Sojourner was sold another two times, and finally, by the age of 18, she reached a family called a Dumont family in West Park, New York. So, at the age of 18, Isabella Baumfree, or Sojourner Truth, she fell in love with a slave named Robert, and he was from a nearby farm. But the couple were not allowed to marry since they had separate owners or separate masters. So instead of Robert, Isabella was forced to marry another slave owned by John Dumont called Thomas. So Thomas was also owned by Dumont just as Isabella. So with Thomas, she bore five children. They are James, Diana, Peter, Elizabeth, and Sophia. So at that time, the political scene in the US was such that there was an upsurge of protests to liberate all the African American slaves in the US. So Isabella's current master Dumont promised her that he will grant her freedom on a speculated date in the year 1826 if she obeyed what he said and fulfilled her duties. But when the speculated date arrived, he had a change of heart and refused to let her go. So Isabella became very upset and she decided to escape from Dumont with only her infant daughter at tow. So she had left all her other children behind with a stone heart because she felt they were still legally bound to Dumont. So eventually Isabella made her way to New Paltz in New York, where she and her infant daughter were taken in by the Van Wagenen family. In the year 1827, the New York anti-slavery law was passed, but then John Dumont, that is Isabella's previous owner, he had illegally sold Isabella's 5-year-old son Peter. So what Isabella did was, she, with the help of the Van Wagenen family, filed a lawsuit to get her son back. So she struggled for months, and after which she won her case miraculously and regained custody of her son. So in history, she was the first black woman to sue a white man in a United States court and win. The Van Wagenen family were helpful to Isabella in many ways, and they had a profound impact on Isabella's spirituality, and she became a very ardent Christian when she was with them. In 1843, she changed her name to Sojourner Truth, believing it was her religious obligation to go forth and speak the truth. And thus she started her journey to speak out against slavery and oppression. So, as a religious speaker and anti slavery activist, she began to gain a lot of attention. And when the Civil War broke out, Truth helped to recruit a lot of black soldiers. And her activism for the abolitionist movement, it gained the attention of then President Abraham Lincoln, and Lincoln invited her to the White House in the year 1864. In the last years of her life, Truth was survived by her daughters, and she eventually died at her home on November 26, 1883. In 1850, Truth dictated her autobiography to a person called Oliver Gilbert, and that was published as The Narrative of Sojourner Truth. So she only dictated her autobiography to Oliver Gilbert because she did not know to read or write. The crux of Sojourner Truth's essay lies in the abolitionist movement and the activism against slavery and slave trade. So we need to know a little bit of the history behind slave trade and abolitionism in order to understand her speech better. So the transatlantic slave trade was responsible for the forced migration of, over 12 to 15 million people from Africa to the Western countries. From the middle of the 15th century to the end of the 19th century, this was in practice. The slave trade not only led to the violent transportation overseas of millions of Africans, but also to the deaths of many millions more. Nobody knows the total number of people who died during the slave raiding and wars in Africa, or during transportation and imprisonment, or in the terrible conditions during the so-called Middle Passage, that is the voyage from Africa to the Americas. So there were countless number of murders that had happened, or deaths that had happened during this process. So the majority of kidnapped Africans weren't already slaves in Africa. They were actually free people who were kidnapped to provide the labor that the European powers required to build their colonies in the American soil. So this is how the slave trade came about. It's generally called a trade since it revolved around transactions or a form of exchange between the African sellers and the European buyers of captives. Europeans, they generally exported manufactured items such as alcohol, textiles, and guns to Africa to be exchanged for African captives. So, as a reaction to this, the abolitionist movement was an effort which tried to end the practice of slavery in the United States. So this abolitionist movement approximately began around the 1830 and lasted till 1870, even after the Civil War. And it started in states like New York and Massachusetts and quickly started to spread to other northern states as well. As it gained momentum, the movement caused increasing friction between states in the north and the slave owning south. Critics of abolition argued that it contradicted the US Constitution, which left the option of slavery up to the individual states. So, abolitionism was illegal in South, and there was even one incident in the year 1833 when a white student was publicly whipped in Nashville for possessing abolitionist literature. So, as the power struggle between the North and the South reached its peak, the Civil War broke out in 1861. So, as the war raged on in the year 1865, President Lincoln issued the 13th Amendment, which officially abolished all forms of slavery in the United States. And after that, the 1870 passage of 15th Amendment extended the voting rights to black men, and finally the movement came to an end. So these are some of the depictions of how slaves were chained and tortured, the treatment that they were given when they were cruelly made to be slaves. So coming to our speech of Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth. In the year 1851, at the Ohio Women's Rights Convention, Truth spoke about equal rights for black women. So there is a small discrepancy between the various versions of the speech. So it is said that Sojourner Truth was not a Southerner, but the dialect and accent in which this speech is written is in the form of a Southerner speaking. So maybe this speech had been tampered historically, but this is the text that we have at hand. So first, the phrase, ain't I a woman? It actually comes from the phrase, am I not a man and a brother, which had been used by British abolitionists since the late 18th century to decry the inhumanity of slavery. So this male motto was first turned female in the 1820s. And this phrase became so integral to the women activists involved in anti-slavery campaigns. And one such women's group gave Truth a white satin banner that pictured the kneeling figure of a woman with uplifted hands under the phrase, am I not a woman and a sister? So that is the form of how Ain't I a Woman, that title came about. So I have broken this speech into 5 paragraphs to give us a clear idea of how she had structured her speech. So in the first paragraph, she begins addressing the audience, and the audience were mostly women, and she addresses them as children. Where there is so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. So she is referring to a racket, and that racket is obviously the political turmoil that was going on in the United States during that time. That is the anti-slavery campaigns and the suffragist movement. of the women. So, at that backdrop, she is giving the speech, and so she refers to these as racket, a kind of chaotic times, a pandemonium, and so there must be something out of kilter. So, kilter in the sense something is out of balance. So, the equality has disappeared, and in its place inequality has taken, and nothing is in balance here. It is like things fall apart, like how Chinua Achebe said. And then she says, I think that twixt the Negroes of the South and the women of the North, all talking about rights. So the Negroes of the South, they are asking for their rights, to liberate from slavery, and the women of the North, they in turn were fighting for their voting rights. So there was an argument for rights everywhere. All around them, there was arguments and campaigns and protests. But all of them were united against one enemy, that is the white man. So the white man is the one who is suppressing all of them. And so truth says that the white men will be in a fix pretty soon. So they will be gone pretty soon if this is going to continue. So this is what is said in the first paragraph. And then moving on to the second paragraph. So she points out at one man in the crowd, and just randomly, and she says that that man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. So there is this protocol that a man has to carry in order to be a gentleman back in the 18th century, before the 18th century, during that time. So if a man must be called as a gentleman, then he has to follow these protocol that safeguarded women's protection. So when a woman goes out, she has to be helped into carriages, and if there is a ditch, then she has to be lifted over the ditch, as though women did not know how to go around a ditch, and she also have to be given the best place everywhere. So maybe Sojourner Truth is sarcastically saying that these were indeed pretensions. Men were actually pretending to be safeguarding women while denying them even the equal rights that they deserve in society. And after this, she goes on to say that nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman? So she goes on to say that how ironical is the situation, because I am a woman too. But the only difference is I have a black skin, and so nobody ever helps me into carriages all my life. I had never been given any best place. So, at least for a white woman, at least men pretend to respect her, at least men pretend to give her the best place. But just because my skin color is black, I am denied even that right. So, she asks the audience whether she is not a woman, whether she is not a human being. And the continuation of second paragraph. Look at me, look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. So she says that she works equally as a man. She works very hard in farmlands. She plows, plants, and gathers into barns, and no man could head me, in the sense no man could overdo her. She can equally do as much as a man does, and she could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it. So here there is also a reference to the insufficient food that is being offered to her. She is not even able to get food properly. So that is the life of a slave. And she also bears the lash. So bearing the lash in the sense, the white people, they regularly punish their slaves for just no reason at all. They always have to punish their slaves just in the sense of making them disciplined. But it is not really needed. Just for their pleasure, they beat the black slaves. So she also bears the lash, in the sense she also bears all the punishment, all the torture that is being given by the white man. And ain't I a woman? So she is bearing all that, and she is a human being. But no man treats her like a human being. So she is treated even more cruelly than an animal. And then she goes on to say, I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? So she says that she had 13 children. And the worst nightmare that a mother could ever have is seeing their children being taken away from them, and not just being taken away, but they are sold off to slavery. So the life that she had been born, the slave life, so she is also, subjecting her children to that life, and that is the worst thing that can ever happen to a mother, seeing their children go and suffer as a slave. So she did not even have anyone else to share her grief with. So when she cried out with the mother's grief, none but Jesus heard her. See, she had no other companion to share her grief with. And she questions, ain't I a woman? So this ain't I a woman is repeated, almost 4 times now. So she tries to bring out that repetitive feeling in order to connect with the woman in the audience. So after this, she talks about the intellect which the white man always thinks that only he possesses. So she talks about how the lack of logic is there in the white man's rule. That is, he says that black people should not have equal rights, but no one is taking away his rights from him. Only the black people are asking for their own rights, not to reduce the already existing rights of white people. But the white man is not ready for that. He is not ready to give them equal rights. So she is sarcastically pointing out with a comparison, that is, if my cup won't hold but a pint and yours holds a quart, wouldn't you be mean to not let me have my little half measure full? That is, the American measurement here denotes that 1 pint is actually a very less amount when compared to a quart. So only 2 pints make 1 quart. So she's telling, I only have 1 pint, whereas you have 1 quart, that is twice my amount. But you are denying even that half measure for me. So how cruel and how self-fulfilling is the white man's attitude. So that is the intellect of white man, that is denying even half of the rights that he possesses just because of racial discrimination. So that is being sarcastically commented upon by Sojourner Truth in this paragraph. So here comes the biblical reference. So the last 2 paragraphs, they deal with biblical reference. So this was also the time when there was a religious upheaval called the Second Great Awakening. So she has used that to bring about a religious connection with the audience as well. So she then again points out another person in the hall. So then that little man in black there, he says, women can't have as much rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. So she is responding that. So that was a common statement by all the male population that Jesus Christ was actually a man. So men have more importance than women. So for that, Truth responds that Jesus Christ itself came from a woman, that is Mary. If Mary wasn't there, Jesus would not have been there. So without a woman, it is impossible for a man to exist. So she points out this, and a huge response comes from the audience after this statement. So in the final paragraph, another biblical reference to the first woman God ever made. That is, he's talking about Eve. So Eve actually managed to turn the world upside down. That is, she ate the forbidden fruit, and that's turned the world upside down and had brought ill fate for everyone. So that is the common belief of everyone. So she says that if Eve was able to do that, if one woman was able to turn the world upside down, then imagine the power of all of us women put together. It can again turn the world right side up. So here she tries to talk about the unity that women need to have, that black and white women need to come together in order to awaken a very powerful strength within us. So finally she finishes the speech talking about the invincible power of women if they stood together. So she is vouching for the unity of women in order to achieve greatness. So with that, she finishes her speech. So the historical context is that the Great Awakening, it was actually a religious belief based on evangelicalism, that is, the belief that faith in Jesus Christ is the foundation for salvation. So the key to this belief was inclusion of everyone, not just the most powerful and wealthy, but everyone. So this became very popular among the black people and also among women. So this is how it triggered. So this religious movement in turn, it triggered the abolitionist movement, which eventually incited the Civil War as well. So this religious connotation can also be found in Sojourner Truth's speech. So the themes are slavery, inequality, and religion, all of which we saw in detail. And the structure of this speech, so it is obviously a speech, a rhetorical style, and Sojourner Truth actually uses personal anecdotes in order to connect with her audience. So it is highly feminine in nature, the speech, and the majority of the audience were women. So those women were able to easily connect with her because of her personal experiences. And the tone was very rebellious, obviously, as she was an activist, and it was also conversational in style because she was referring to men who were in the crowd also. So it was very conversational in style. So that's all about the speech called Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth. Hope this was easy to understand, and I thank you all for watching the video. Thank you.